For this course, I wrote a quick little application that we will use to examine some of the common pitfalls that you might find or even write into an Angular-based application. Now, let me go ahead and reiterate something from the introduction. Yes, we are going to focus on Angular, but the same ideas and concepts can be applied to any JavaScript framework, because really the specifics of the framework aren't that important. It's the way that we write our applications using these JavaScript frameworks, because in that sense, they are very, very similar. Well, the application I wrote is called Soundboard, and it's just a simple app that you can log in, you can post a message, and you can edit that message. And really, that's it. There's not a whole lot to it. And if you want to follow along, you of course need to download the source code, but you will also need to configure your system to run the application. Now, this is an application written for Node, so the first thing you need is to download and install Node.js. And you can do that very easily by going to nodejs.org and then clicking on the big install button. And it doesn't matter what operating system you have, the install button is going to be for whatever your operating system is. I'm on Windows 8, 64-bit, and you can see that that is what we are getting. So we want to install Node. We do want to make sure that we install NPM as well. So whenever you have that option, make sure that you are installing the package manager. And I believe that's default. So just take the defaults and install, and then you're going to be good to go as far as installing Node is concerned. The Soundboard application uses MongoDB for a data store. So just go to mongodb.org, click on the big Download MongoDB button, and then scroll down to Download MongoDB for your operating system. Installing MongoDB is straightforward, at least it is on Windows. You will need to, of course, accept the license agreement, and if you choose the complete option, then it will give you everything that you need to get started with MongoDB. And after it is installed, you do need to add a new folder to your root. Now, unfortunately, I'm not sure about any other operating system other than Windows, because I haven't installed MongoDB on any other system. But if you are on Windows, you will need to go to the C drive. You will need to add another folder called Data, and then you will need to add a subfolder called DB. I only assume you will need to do the same thing on other platforms as well. Well, now you have everything that you need to follow along in this course. You have Node, MongoDB, and of course the source code. For the remainder of this lesson, we're going to install a UI for managing MongoDB. You don't have to have a UI. You can use the command line if you want to. And then we're also going to very briefly look at Visual Studio, because it has some very nice tools for working with Node applications. And I know that that's not going to appeal to everybody, but I use Visual Studio on a daily basis. It's free, and of course the Node tools are free as well. So if you are on Windows, then there is that option. So if you want to move on to the next lesson, that's fine. We'll dive deeper into the Soundboard app. But if any of what I talked about is interesting to you, then feel free to keep watching. So we're going to use a UI called Mongo Express. This is a Node package, so we can install it using NPM. It's called Mongo-Express, and this is going to at least get us started. This is going to download everything into a folder called node_modules or something along those lines. And then if we look inside of that directory, then we have Mongo Express. Well, I'm going to take Mongo Express outside and put it directly into documents just to make that a little bit easier to get to. And then we need to also install the packages for Mongo Express. So we'll cd into Mongo Express and then npm install. And once everything is installed, then we need to modify the configuration file. And I think we can just take the defaults. I don't think we have to actually modify any of the settings. We do need to change the name. It is currently config.default.js. We need to make that config.js. And let's go ahead and open it just to see if there's anything that we need to change. I think all of the defaults are going to be fine. The server is localhost, which is exactly what we're going to be using. Port is 27017. That's also the default. We aren't going to be using any authorization just to make working with MongoDB a lot easier, but there is a username and password for Mongo Express, and that is down here. It uses basic authentication. The username is admin. The password is pass, and I'm not sure what happens if those are blank. I'm just going to keep those as is. Now, we could run this right now, but we also need to run MongoDB first. So we can do that from the command line. You will need to go to wherever MongoDB was installed. For Windows, we need to go to Program Files, and then MongoDB, and then Server, and then 3.0, and then bin. And inside of here is an executable called Mongodb. That is what we need to run in order to run MongoDB. Now, if you didn't create that data directory, then it's going to tell you here. And if you're on some other platform, then that might be where you will find out where you need to create that data directory. And that is, of course, even if you need to. And once you start MongoDB, it's going to run. So we just need to minimize that console window. We can go back to the other one and we can just do node app. And that should start up our MongoDB UI. Now we can see here that Mongo Express Server is listening on port 8081. So we can open up the browser and we can go to localhost 8081, and then that will take us to the login, which is admin and pass, and then we get into the UI. And of course, we don't have any databases yet, but whenever we create databases by running our soundboard application, then those will show up there. If you are a Windows user and you write a lot of Node applications, then Visual Studio is something that you might want to look into. And of course, if you write .NET applications, then Visual Studio is something that you would definitely want. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of value there for developers for PHP or Ruby or anything other than Node or .NET. Now, that might change in the future because Microsoft is doing some very surprising things lately, but I don't see that happening. But if you write .NET or Node applications, you can get a fully featured version of Visual Studio for free. It's called Visual Studio Community, and it was what the professional version used to be. But of course, they've added some more features to professional so that people will have some reason to purchase the professional version. But you can download and install Microsoft's Visual Studio Community for free, and then you can install the Node tools for Visual Studio. That is at nodejstools.codeplex.com. You can just download and install it, and it adds a lot of wonderful tools for developing Node applications so that you can create a new project and you can choose JavaScript. And then there's Node.js, and there's a lot of templates already there that you can start building your Node-based applications. There is a basic Node.js Express 4 application, so I will choose that as the template and click on OK. And the great thing is how it lays out your, what they call solution, it's your project. And of course, you have your package.json file, but it also shows you all of the packages that are installed for your application. If there's any that aren't installed, it shows you those, and you can install those if you want. If you look over here, you can see that there are several packages that are missing. So we could have told it to update npm packages, but it did that automatically. And as we add or remove packages from our package.json file, then that would be reflected inside of the packages listing over here. And of course, we can also drill into the modules. So if we needed to get into the source code of the body parser, then everything is there for us to view. But the great thing is the debugging. You can start up your Node application, you can set breakpoints, and you can hit those breakpoints and debug your application. So it's a very nice development environment for writing Node applications. And it's what I used to write the soundboard application that we are going to look at starting in the next lesson.